That's your protection now, widow. Some broken-down drifter who can barely grip a fork? The words hung in the Wyoming air like poison. Violet Gomez stood motionless in front of her modest ranch house, the summer sun brutal against her black mourning dress. 3 men sat their horses at her gate. The Caldwell brothers, Wade, Marcus, and young Danny. They'd been circling her property for weeks, ever since her husband Miguel was found dead in the ravine. Accident, the town said. Murder, Violet knew. Behind her stood Eric Jackson, 65 years old, tall but weathered, silver hair falling past his collar. His hands trembled slightly as he rolled a cigarette, age, people assumed. His trail-worn duster hung loose on his frame. To anyone watching, he looked like what he was, an old man past his prime, hired out of pity by a desperate widow. Wade Caldwell leaned forward in his saddle, grinning. "You hear me, old man? You think you can stop what's coming?" Eric's pale blue eyes lifted slowly. He didn't speak, didn't move, just looked at Wade with the kind of stillness that predators recognize in each other. But Wade saw only an old man's stare. "We gave you a fair offer, Mrs. Gomez," Marcus called out, his voice mockingly polite. $500 for this land. That's generous, considering your situation. "My husband built this ranch," Violet said quietly. "I'm not selling." Danny laughed, too loud, too eager. "Then you're a fool, lady, and your hired man there, he's dead weight." Eric finished rolling his cigarette, lit it with a match struck against his thumbnail, took a long drag. The silence stretched like a bowstring. "If this moment has you hooked, if you want to see what happens when cruel men underestimate the wrong man, then do something for me. Don't just watch. Subscribe. Share this story. Because what unfolds next isn't just entertainment. It's a reminder that evil only wins when good people stay silent. Let this story reach someone who needs to remember that. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Let's build something here." Wade's smile faded. Something about the old man's calm unnerved him. "You got something to say, Grandpa?" Eric took another drag, exhaled smoke slowly. "Yeah, I got something to say." He dropped the cigarette, ground it out with his boot. "You boys should leave now, while you still can." Marcus Caldwell threw back his head and laughed. "You threatening us, old man?" "Not threatening," Eric said softly. "Warning. There's a difference." Wade's hand drifted toward the pistol at his hip. "Maybe we should teach this fossil some respect, boys." Violet stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Get off my property. Now." "Or what?" Danny sneered. "You'll have your crippled hired hand shoot us? Look at him. He can barely stand straight." It was true that Eric stood with a slight lean, favoring his left side. His hands still trembled as he let them hang loose at his sides. But his eyes never blinked, never wavered. "Last chance," Eric said. "Ride away. Don't come back." Wade's face flushed red. "You know what? I'm tired of talking." He started to dismount, and that's when Eric's right hand moved. Not fast by young standards, not the lightning draw of a 20-year-old gunfighter, but with the precision of 30 years' practice. The kind of movement that looked slow until you realized the gun was already clear of the holster, cocked and aimed, all in one fluid motion that seemed to happen outside of time. The Colt pointed steady at Wade's chest, old model, cavalry issue. Bone grips carved with initials, EJ, and below that, barely visible, 5th Cavalry. Marcus's eyes went wide. "Wait. Wade, look at those guns." Wade froze, one foot in the stirrup. His gaze dropped to Eric's gun belt. Twin Colts, both cavalry issue, both immaculately maintained despite their age. Jesus Christ, Marcus breathed. Wade, those markings. Danny's cocky grin had vanished. What markings? 5th Cavalry, Marcus whispered. Apache campaigns. Those guns. I've heard stories about a scout. They called him the Devil of the 5th. Said he could... He trailed off, staring at Eric with dawning recognition and terror. Eric's voice remained soft. I'm the man whose employer you murdered, and I'm giving you one chance, one to ride out and never come back, or I'll kill all 3 of you where you stand. The air felt electric. Violet could hear her own heartbeat, could see the sweat beading on Wade's forehead despite the man's earlier bravado. Marcus made his decision. He jerked his reins back sharply. This ain't worth dying over, Wade, not today. You coward, Wade snarled, but his voice shook. Danny was already turning his horse, eyes locked on Eric's gun, but Wade's pride wouldn't let him retreat. This ain't over, old man. We'll burn this ranch to ash. We'll... Eric fired. The bullet didn't hit flesh. It struck the ground 2 inches from Wade's boot, sending up a spray of Wyoming dust. Wade's horse screamed and reared. By the time Wade regained control, both of Eric's Colts were drawn, aimed with that same terrible precision. Next shot goes through bone, Eric said quietly. Now ride. They rode. Wade went last, shouting threats that the wind carried away. The townspeople who'd been watching from windows and doorways, scared silent until now, slowly emerged. Whispers spread like wildfire. When the dust settled, Violet turned to Eric. Her hands were shaking. They'll come back. I know. Eric holstered his guns with the same practiced economy of movement. And when they do, we'll be ready. You saved my life just now. Not yet, ma'am. Saving your life comes later. That was just buying time. He looked at her with those pale eyes. You need to understand something, Mrs. Gomez. Those men killed your husband because he wouldn't sell. They'll kill you for the same reason, and they'll kill me because I'm standing in their way. Then why stay? Her voice broke. You don't owe me anything. You could leave right now and no one would blame you. Eric was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old regrets. 20 years ago, I walked away from someone who needed me, told myself it was for the best, that I was protecting them by leaving. He met her gaze. 3 months later, he was dead, and I wasn't there. Your son. A small nod. Never got to tell him I was sorry. Never got to make it right. He straightened, and for a moment the trembling in his hands stopped entirely. I won't make that mistake twice. So, yes, ma'am, I'm staying. And when the Caldwells come back, and they will come back, I'll be standing between you and them. Violet felt tears, threatening. This stranger, this old gunfighter with his cavalry Colts and his haunted eyes, he was all that stood between her and death. What do we do now? Now? Eric looked toward the horizon where the Caldwell brothers had disappeared. Now we prepare, because they won't come back with just 3 men next time. They'll bring hired guns, professional killers, and we need to be ready for war. I don't know how to fight a war. You don't have to. His voice gentled. You just have to survive it. I'll handle the rest. But even as he said it, Violet saw the way he pressed his hand briefly to his side, saw the tight lines around his mouth that spoke of old pain, old wounds that never quite healed. How much fight did this old man really have left in him? And would it be enough? 3 hours later, Violet and Eric rode into Copper Ridge. The town was small. One main street, a dozen businesses, maybe 300 souls total. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, and secrets died fast. As they rode down Main Street, conversations stopped. Women pulled children closer. Men found reasons to step inside shops. The message was clear. Association with Violet Gomez had become dangerous. At Brenner's general store, the shopkeeper's face went pale when they entered. "Mrs. Gomez, Mr. Jackson, what can I—" "That is, I'm not sure I can—" "Ammunition," Eric said calmly. ".45 caliber, 6 boxes. Also dried goods, beans, coffee, salt pork, flour. And medical supplies, bandages, carbolic acid, laudanum." Brenner's hands trembled as he reached for the items. "Mr. Jackson, the Caldwells are good customers. Very good customers. I can't afford to—" "You're getting paid, aren't you?" Eric counted bills on the counter. "This is business. They'll know I sold to you. They'll think I'm taking sides." Violet stepped forward. "My husband bought from you for 7 years, Mr. Brenner, paid fair, treated you with respect, and the Caldwells murdered him." Her voice hardened. "If you're worried about sides, you should have thought about that when Miguel was alive." Brenner flushed. "I have a family, Mrs. Gomez. A wife, 2 daughters. I can't—" "Neither can we," Eric interrupted softly. "But here we are anyway." The door opened. Sheriff Tom Hastings entered, his badge catching the afternoon light. 50 years old, gray mustache. Eyes that had seen too much and looked away too often. "Mrs. Gomez, Mr. Jackson, I need a word outside." On the boardwalk, Hastings kept his voice low. "The Caldwells filed a complaint. Claim you threatened them with deadly force without provocation. They want Jackson arrested." "They came to my property," Violet said, fury rising. "They threatened me. Eric defended me." "I believe you. But believing and proving are different things." Hastings looked tired. "The Caldwells own half this county. They've got lawyers, politicians, the territorial judge in their pocket. If they push this, I'll have no choice but to arrest him." "You'll do what they tell you," Eric said flatly. "Because you're scared." Hastings' jaw tightened. "Damn right I'm scared. I've got one deputy, green as spring grass. The Caldwells have 15 hired men on their ranch, and I've heard they're bringing in more from Kansas, professional guns. If this becomes war, innocent people die." "So you want us to run?" Violet said bitterly. "I want you to live." Hastings' voice cracked slightly. "Mrs. Gomez, I knew Miguel. He was good, decent, honest. What happened to him was murder, but I can't prove it. The Caldwells claim it was an accident. They've got witnesses, their own men, who'll swear Miguel was drunk, that he fell." "He never drank," Violet whispered. "I know, but I can't prove that either." Hastings turned to Eric. "And you, Mr. Jackson? I don't know who you were, but I know what you are now. An old man with a death wish. You might take 1 or 2 of them with you, but they'll kill you, and then they'll kill her. Is that what you want?" Eric studied the sheriff for a long moment. "What I want doesn't matter. What's right matters. And what's right is stopping evil men from destroying good people." He paused. "But you already know that, Sheriff. You're just too scared to act on it." "I'm one man," Hastings said quietly. "Not a hero, not a legend. Just a man trying to keep a town from burning." They rode out in silence, feeling the weight of eyes watching from windows, judging, pitying, already mourning them as dead. Back at the ranch, Violet stood at her kitchen window, watching the sunset paint the mountains crimson. Behind her, Eric cleaned his guns with methodical precision, a ritual from another lifetime. "We can't win," she said quietly. "Not against 15 men. Maybe more." "No," Eric agreed. "Not alone." A knock at the door made them both tense. Eric's hand moved to his gun, but Violet shook her head. Through the window she could see 2 horses, 2 riders, both with their hands visible and empty. She opened the door cautiously. A woman stood there, maybe 40, with intelligent eyes and weathered hands. Beside her was a man, tall and broad-shouldered with a military bearing. "Mrs. Gomez, my name is Catherine West. This is James Holloway, my foreman. We own the ranch north of yours. Can we talk?" Inside, over coffee, Catherine didn't waste words. "The Caldwells came to me 2 years ago, wanted to buy my land. When I refused, they poisoned my water, killed 30 head of cattle. The law did nothing." "Why are you here?" Violet asked. "Because I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of watching decent people get destroyed while everyone looks the other way." Catherine's voice was steady. "Your husband stood up to them, got killed for it. Now you're doing the same. If they break you, they'll come for me next. Better we stand together." "You'd fight beside us?" "I'd fight beside anyone willing to stand against them. I'm done being a victim." James Holloway spoke, his voice carrying authority. "Ma'am, I served in the 5th Cavalry. Scout Division. I heard stories about a man named Eric Jackson. Twin Colts. They called him the Devil of the 5th. He looked at Eric. "You that man?" Eric met his gaze. "I was. Long time ago." Holloway nodded slowly. "Then maybe we have a chance. Because the Caldwells just hired 4 new men. Brought them from Denver. I know one. Man called Donovan. He's a killer. Fast and expensive. They don't hire men like that unless they're planning to end this quick and bloody." The hope Violet had felt flickered and died. 4 more guns, 19 total against them. The math was impossible. But Catherine shook her head. "Bad odds, yes. Impossible, no. If we're smart, if we fight on our terms, we can win." If you're still with us, if this story of courage and conscience means something to you, then prove it. Hit that subscribe button. Not for me. For every person who's ever stood alone against something bigger and darker. For everyone who's ever needed to remember that good people don't have to stay silent. Share this with someone who needs to see it, and drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me you're here, because this story needs witnesses. Eric spread a hand-drawn map on the table. Ranches, roads, the town, the Caldwell property. Catherine added details, guard rotations, supply routes, weak points. Holloway contributed tactical knowledge from his cavalry days. A plan began to form. "They'll try to isolate you first," Eric said. "Cut off supplies, burn out buildings, run off livestock, make you weak, desperate. Then they'll come in force." "So we don't wait," Catherine said. "We strike first, disrupt their operations." "Guerrilla tactics," Holloway added. "Hit and run. We can't match them in a straight fight, but we can bleed them, make it costly, make them afraid." But Violet was already shaking her head, seeing the flaw. "We can't raid forever. Eventually they'll corner us, and then it's a fight we lose." Eric tapped the map. Devil's Pass, narrow canyon, high walls, one way in. 10 people could hold it against 50. How do we get them there? With bait. Eric looked at Violet. They want you dead almost as much as the land. If they think you're running, vulnerable, alone, they'll come fast, with everyone. Violet's stomach dropped. You want me as bait? Not alone. We'll be close, hidden. But they need to believe you're alone." "It's too dangerous," Catherine started. "Then I'll die fighting," Violet interrupted, voice steady. "Better than waiting for them to burn me out. Better than running." Eric studied her. "You're sure?" She thought of Miguel, thought of his dreams for this land, thought of what she'd become if she ran now. "I'm sure. Then we do it tomorrow. We make it obvious you're fleeing. They'll follow, and we'll be ready." But as they finalized the plan, Violet caught Eric wincing, pressing his hand to his side, saw the tight lines around his mouth. The old gunfighter was hurt, maybe badly, and she was about to bet all their lives on his ability to fight. Dawn broke cold and grey. Violet, dressed in riding clothes, strapped Miguel's old gun belt around her waist. The weight felt foreign, terrifying, necessary. Outside, Eric and Holloway positioned themselves at Devil's Pass. The canyon was perfect. Walls rose 60 feet on either side, the path barely wide enough for 2 horses abreast. Natural Murder Alley, Holloway had called it. Defenders with rifles on the rim could create a killing field. Catherine and her 3 ranch hands took positions on the high walls, hidden behind rocks, rifles loaded and ready. 2 more men guarded the far entrance. If anyone tried to escape that way, they wouldn't make it. Eric moved slowly, his breathing labored. Violet saw fresh blood seeping through his shirt where old wounds had reopened with the exertion. "You're hurt," she said quietly. "I'm fine. Don't lie to me. Not now." He met her eyes. "Took a bullet in Mexico. 3 years back. Never healed right. Been bleeding on and off ever since." He attempted a smile. "But I'm still breathing. That's what counts. You should rest. Let someone else." "No." His voice was firm. "This is my fight. Has been since the moment I took your husband's pay." He gripped her shoulders gently. "You ride out looking scared. Looking like you're running for your life. They'll follow. And when they enter this canyon, don't look back. Just ride straight through to the other side. We'll handle the rest. And if something goes wrong, then you keep riding. All the way to Cheyenne if you have to. Find the U.S. Marshal there. Tell him everything." His pale eyes bored into hers. "Promise me." She wanted to refuse, wanted to stay and fight. But she saw the steel in his gaze, the absolute determination. This was his last stand. His final chance to be the man he'd failed to be years ago. "I promise," she whispered. He nodded, pressed something into her hand. A small daguerreotype photograph. A young man, maybe 20, with Eric's eyes. "That's my son, Daniel. If I don't make it, see that he's buried proper. Cemetery in Denver. Tell him," his voice caught, "tell him his father was thinking of him at the end." Violet's eyes burned with tears. "You'll tell him yourself." "Maybe." He smiled sadly. "But just in case." She tucked the photograph safely away. Then she mounted her horse, looking back one last time at the people who'd become her unlikely family. Catherine nodded encouragement. Holloway gave a small salute. Eric simply watched, his twin Colts already in his hands. Then Violet turned her horse and rode, not looking back, playing her part perfectly. A frightened widow fleeing for her life. Behind her, in the shadows of Devil's Pass, death waited patiently. Within an hour, she saw them, dust cloud on the horizon. Riders, many of them. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She urged her horse faster, not acting now, genuinely afraid. The chase had begun. Violet's horse thundered across the Wyoming grassland, hooves pounding rhythm with her racing heart. Behind her, the sound of pursuit grew louder. Shouting, laughing. The confidence of predators certain of their kill. A gunshot cracked the air. The bullet went wide, kicking up dirt to her left. They were trying to bring down her horse, leave her stranded and helpless. Another shot, closer this time. Devil's Pass appeared ahead, a dark crack in the earth. Violet aimed for it, leaning low over her horse's neck, urging more speed from the animal already giving everything. Behind her, Wade Caldwell's voice carried over the thunder of hooves. "Cut her off. Don't let her reach the canyon." But they were too late. Violet plunged into the pass, walls rising on either side, the sudden shadow after bright sunlight momentarily blinding. She kept riding, deeper, deeper into the throat of the canyon. Behind her, the Caldwell gang followed without hesitation. 19 men total, Wade, Marcus, and Danny leading the pack, followed by their ranch hands and the 4 hired guns from Denver. All committed now, all trapped. Violet saw it ahead, a flash of sunlight on metal from the canyon rim, Eric's signal. The trap was set. She kicked her horse toward the far exit, toward safety, and behind her, hell opened up. Eric gave the command with a simple hand gesture. Rifles spoke from the canyon walls. The first volley was devastating. 3 Caldwell men went down instantly, saddles emptied, horses screaming, blood spraying. The rest tried to retreat, but Catherine's men had already closed the entrance behind them. They were boxed in, caught in a crossfire with nowhere to run. "Ambush!" someone screamed. "It's an ambush!" The canyon became chaos. Men tried to dismount, seeking cover that didn't exist, tried to return fire. Shooting blindly at muzzle flashes above, tried to surrender, but the firing didn't stop. One of the Denver hired guns, Donovan, the killer Holloway had warned about, kept his head. He spotted a position on the western wall and snap-fired 3 shots. One of Catherine's ranch hands cried out and fell, tumbling down the canyon wall, but Holloway was already adjusting, drawing a bead on Donovan, squeezed the trigger. The hired gun jerked backward off his horse and didn't move again. Eric worked his twin Colts with mechanical precision, each shot deliberate, each bullet finding flesh. His hands didn't tremble now. Whatever palsy age had given him disappeared in the crucible of combat. This was what he'd been born for, what he'd spent a lifetime perfecting. A Caldwell ranch hand broke cover, trying to charge up the western slope. Eric's bullet took him in the chest. He fell backward, rolled, lay still. The fight lasted maybe 7 minutes. It felt like hours. When the smoke cleared, 17 men lay dead or dying in the narrow canyon. Blood soaked into Wyoming soil. Horses ran loose, wild-eyed with terror. Only 2 men still stood. Wade and Marcus Caldwell, backed against the canyon wall, hands raised, faces white with shock and terror. Danny Caldwell lay dead near the entrance, his youthful arrogance forever silenced. Eric descended from the rim, moving stiffly but steadily. Catherine and Holloway joined him. Violet rode back into the canyon, her rifle across her saddle, face pale but composed. They stood in a half-circle around the surviving Caldwell brothers. Wade's voice shook. You murdered them. You murdered our men." "No," Eric said quietly. "We killed them in self-defense. They came after Mrs. Gomez with guns drawn. We protected her, that's law." "That's butchery," Marcus screamed. "You'll hang for this." "Will we?" Catherine stepped forward. "Or will the territorial marshal hear about how you've been terrorizing this county for years? How you murdered Miguel Gomez? How you've poisoned water, burned property, killed livestock? How you just chased an unarmed widow into a canyon with 19 armed men?" The brothers' faces showed the truth. They knew they'd lost. Eric's Colts never wavered as he regarded the Caldwell brothers. Around them, the canyon floor was a charnel house. Bodies, blood, the stench of gunpowder and death. One of Catherine's men was tying tourniquets on the wounded ranch hand who'd been shot. "Here's what happens now," Eric said, his voice carrying quiet authority. "You sign over your ranch to Mrs. Gomez. Every acre, every building, every head of cattle. Then you take what money you can carry and leave Wyoming, today. Never come back." "Go to hell," Wade snarled, but his voice lacked conviction. "Alternative is we kill you here," Holloway said calmly. "Tell the marshal we shot you in self-defense during the ambush. Who's to say different? Your men are dead. Ours will testify you kept fighting." Marcus grabbed his brother's arm. "Wade, for God's sake, just sign. Please. Danny's dead. Our crew's dead. It's over." "Listen to your brother," Catherine said. "This is mercy, Mr. Caldwell. More than you deserve. More than you showed Miguel Gomez." The fight drained out of Wade. His shoulders slumped. "How long do we have?" "Sunset," Eric said. "After that, I can't guarantee your safety. Too many families you've destroyed. Too many people who want you dead." They rode to the Caldwell Ranch under escort, Eric and Holloway keeping weapons trained on the brothers every moment. At the main house, with Catherine and Violet as witnesses, Wade signed transfer documents with shaking hands. "You're taking everything," he said bitterly. 30 years of work. "You took my husband," Violet said quietly. "I'd call us even, except we're not. Because Miguel was worth 1,000 of you." Marcus packed quickly. Clothes, cash, a few personal items. Wade moved like a man in shock, unable to process how completely everything had fallen apart. As the sun touched the western mountains, the Caldwell brothers rode out, heading east toward Colorado, toward oblivion, toward whatever future waited for men who'd lost everything. Violet watched them disappear, feeling none of the satisfaction she'd expected. Only emptiness. Miguel was still dead. The ranch, now vastly larger with the Caldwell property, still felt hollow without him. Eric stood beside her, swaying slightly. His shirt was soaked with blood. "You need a doctor," she said urgently. "Later. First we bury the dead." He looked at her. "All of them. Even the Caldwell men. They deserve that much." They worked into the night, digging graves. The town's undertaker came reluctantly, bringing simple pine coffins. Word had spread quickly. The Caldwell reign was over. People emerged from houses, from hiding, from years of fear. Sheriff Hastings arrived at midnight, looking haggard. He surveyed the scene. 19 fresh graves. The exhausted survivors, Eric Jackson barely conscious, but still standing. "I should arrest you," Hastings said without conviction. "This was slaughter." "This was justice," Catherine replied. "They came after an unarmed woman with 19 armed men. We defended her. That's within the law." Hastings was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I'll file my report accordingly. Self-defense." He looked at Violet. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Gomez. Sorry I didn't help sooner. Sorry I was too scared to do what was right." "You're helping now," she said. "That's what matters." After Hastings left, Violet finally forced Eric into her ranch house. The old gunfighter collapsed into a chair, face gray with pain and exhaustion. She unwrapped his makeshift bandages, revealing the wound, old bullet hole that had torn open, bleeding freely. She cleaned it as gently as possible, packed it with fresh bandages, gave him laudanum for the pain. "You're going to kill yourself," she said quietly. "One day that wound will bleed and not stop. Maybe." His eyes were distant. "But not today. Today, we won." "Did we? 19 men are dead. 19 men who would have killed you without hesitation." He met her gaze. War is ugly, Mrs. Gomez. It leaves scars. Some you can see, some you can't. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's the only way to stop evil. She thought about that as she worked. Thought about Miguel. About justice. About the price of survival in a land where the law meant less than the gun. What happens now? She asked. Now? Now you build. You take that land, yours and the Caldwells, and you make something good out of it. Something Miguel would be proud of. And you? He smiled faintly. Me? I'm an old man who just fought his last war. If I survive the night, I'll help you for as long as I can. After that, he shrugged. We'll see. Violet finished bandaging him. Don't you dare die on me, Eric Jackson. Not after everything. Yes, ma'am, he murmured, already falling asleep. I'll do my best. She sat beside him through the night, keeping watch. Outside, Wyoming wind whispered through the grass. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they'd survived. That was enough. 3 months passed. Autumn painted the Wyoming landscape in copper and gold. The combined properties, Violet's ranch, the Caldwell land, and Catherine's spread, formed the largest operation in the territory. They employed 30 men, ran 8,000 head of cattle, and had become the economic backbone of Copper Ridge. But more important than the business was what they'd built, a model of cooperation, a place where good people looked out for each other, where strength protected the weak instead of exploiting them. The town changed too. Sheriff Hastings hired 2 new deputies, both veterans, both men who wouldn't be intimidated. The territorial marshal visited, investigated the Devil's Pass incident, and officially ruled it justifiable homicide in defense of a citizen's life. The Caldwell name became a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil eventually met justice, even on the frontier. Eric's health improved slowly. The wound finally closed, though he moved more carefully now, acknowledging his age in ways he hadn't before. But his presence remained commanding. Ranch hands and townspeople treated him with careful respect, not out of fear, but recognition of what he'd done. Violet found herself becoming a leader in the community. People came to her for advice, for arbitration of disputes, for help in hard times. She never sought the role, but it found her anyway. The widow who'd stood her ground, the woman who'd fought for justice. She still visited Miguel's grave every evening, still talked to him about the day's events, the decisions she'd made, the future she was building. We did it, love, she whispered one October evening. We stopped them. We saved the ranch. Saved a lot more than that, actually. She smiled through tears. I wish you could see it. All of it. You'd be so proud. Behind her, footsteps approached. Eric, moving carefully, carrying flowers to place on the grave. He would be proud, the old gunfighter said quietly. Of you. Of all of this. I couldn't have done it without you. You'd have found a way. You're stronger than you know. He paused. I got a letter yesterday, from my son's widow. Never knew he'd gotten married. She found my name in his papers, tracked me down through the cavalry. She wants to meet. Says Daniel talked about me sometimes, said his voice caught, said he forgave me. Violet's throat tightened. Will you go? I think so. After we get the herd to market. After winter preparations are done. He smiled faintly. After I make sure you don't need me anymore. I'll always need you, Eric. Not as a gunfighter, as family. Something in his weathered face softened. Family. Haven't had that in a long time. They stood together as darkness fell, watching stars emerge. Two survivors who'd fought together, bled together, won together. The war was over. The killing was done. Now came the harder work. Living, healing, becoming more than just people with blood on their hands. "Do you regret it?" Violet asked quietly. "The violence? The killing?" Eric considered carefully. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret the young men who died following bad leaders. But I don't regret protecting you. Don't regret stopping the Caldwells." He met her gaze. "Some things are worth fighting for. Worth killing for, if it comes to it. Justice. Protection of the innocent. A chance for decent people to live free. That's what Miguel believed. Smart man, your husband." They walked back to the ranch house together. Behind them, Miguel's grave stood silent in the starlight, watching over the land he'd died protecting. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, always did on the frontier, but tonight they had peace, hard-won, blood-bought, real, and sometimes that was enough. 1 year after the battle at Devil's Pass, Copper Ridge held its first annual harvest festival. Main Street bustled with vendors, families, laughter. A school had opened, 20 students learning to read and write and dream. A church stood on the hill, new businesses thrived. Violet stood on her porch watching the celebration, feeling something like contentment. The ranch prospered, the cattle were fat, the land was at peace. Eric emerged from the house, moving slowly but steadily. "Ready to go down? People are asking for you." "In a minute." She studied him. "You're leaving soon, aren't you?" He nodded. "Time to meet my daughter-in-law. Make peace with Daniel's memory. I've stayed longer than intended. You're always welcome here. This is your home now if you want it. I know, and I'm grateful. But there are other places I need to be, other wounds to heal." He paused. "You'll be fine without me. You've been fine for months now. Because of you. No, because of you. I just gave you time to find your strength. You'd have found it eventually anyway." He smiled. "You're Miguel's widow, but you're also Violet Gomez. That name means something now. Justice, courage, integrity. Don't forget that." She felt tears threatening. "How do I thank you for everything?" "You already have, by building something good, by proving that decent people can win." He gripped her shoulders gently. "That's the only thanks I need." They walked into town together. Children ran past, laughing. Women greeted Violet warmly. Men tipped hats respectfully. This was her community now, her family. At the festival, Catherine West raised a toast. To Violet Gomez, to Eric Jackson, to everyone who stood against tyranny and won. The crowd cheered, glasses clinked, music played, but Violet's mind was elsewhere, thinking about the journey from terrified widow to community leader, thinking about the cost, 19 dead men, nightmares that still woke her sometimes, the weight of decisions that could never be unmade. Was it worth it? She looked around at the thriving town, the happy families, the children playing safely. Yes, it was worth it. 2 weeks later, she stood at the train station watching Eric board. He'd shaved, dressed in clean clothes, looked almost respectable. Almost. But those pale blue eyes still carried the weight of old violence, old sins, old redemption, earned through blood. "Take care of yourself," he said quietly. "And if trouble comes again, and it might, because this is still the frontier, remember what I taught you." be prepared. Be strong. Be willing to do what's necessary. I will, she promised. And Eric? When you meet Daniel's wife, tell her something for me. Tell her that her husband's sacrifice mattered. That what he gave you, the chance to be the man you always should have been, changed everything. Changed me. Changed this whole town. His eyes glistened. I'll tell her. The train whistle blew. Steam hissed. Eric climbed aboard, turned once to wave, then was gone. Violet stood on the platform long after the train disappeared, feeling the weight of sorrow